as you guys come in. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. Haven't been live in what, 3-4 days? And then I go live on the holiday. Who do that and why? Okay, so we're going to get into the hot topics, trending topics. We're going to talk about what's going on in the world, and we're going to see how this goes. Like the video as you guys come in. Subscribe to the page as you guys come in. Let me go ahead and do my disclaimer to take care of that. But thanks for being here. I hope you have a happy holiday. I hope all is well. You've got everything ready for the holiday. So we're going to get straight into the topics. Let me get into my disclaimer. Please like, comment, and subscribe, period. Please hit the like button, period. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. This is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is used permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged in our opinion and for entertainment purposes only. We're going to get straight into the video. Like the video as you guys come in.
In an exclusive new interview with the Daily Caller, Trump was asked whether he'd be comfortable seeing former FBI Director James Comey and former CIA Director John Brennan arrested live on television as part of his administration's new focus on the Russia election interference investigation. His response would not bother me at all. That attitude, punishing perceived enemies while rewarding devotees, is exactly what we're seeing across the federal government. At the Centers for Disease Control, Trump has already installed a new hand-picked loyalist, a business investor with no medical training, to replace a career scientist to run your nation's top public health agency. Then there's the Federal Reserve, where emergency hearings are underway right now after Trump's attempt to oust Fed Board Governor Lisa Cook over alleged mortgage fraud, even though she has not been charged with any crime. But the aim is clear: get her out so he can put in a loyalist. And that's become Trump's playbook across the government, forcing out officials at the CIA, the Department of Transportation, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, institutions where nonpartisanship is essential to what they do. It's their lifeblood. Trump is also ramping up his war on blue states, manufacturing crisis after crisis as a means to seize more power. In addition to National Guard deployments, Trump is threatening new immigration crackdowns in Boston and Chicago using agents from ICE and Border Patrol, agencies whose budget Trump tripled this year. And if you're wondering how far he intends to take this, well, folks, here's your president in his own words.
So the line is that I'm a dictator when I stop crime. So a lot of people say, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. But I'm not a dictator. I would get the right to do anything I want to do. I'm the president of the United States. If I think our country's in danger, and it is in danger in these cities, I can do it. And they say, we don't need him. Freedom. He's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator.
Joining us now, Executive Chair of the Democracy Defenders Fund and former White House ethics czar under President Obama, Norm Eisen, former federal prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst Joyce Vance, and former DHS Chief of Staff during Donald Trump's first term and author of Blowback, Miles Taylor. Miles, I want to start with you because the president saying, I have the right to do anything I want to do, I'm the president of the United States, should be ringing off alarm bells for more than just us at this table and at home on this panel. It feels like that's not happening. What do you think is going on?
Incredibly, Eugene, I think people still aren't taking him seriously. But we saw him make the same comments 5 years ago. I mean, during the COVID pandemic, we all remember when Donald Trump said, when you are the president of the United States, the authority is total, and that's the way it's got to be. And his allies at the time said, well, look, it's just a figure of speech. He's just joking. We've been saying that for far too long. Donald Trump is not joking. And even with this interview with the Daily Beast about Comey and Brennan, I don't know if he's going to try to arrest Comey and Brennan. He's going to try to arrest his enemies, though. He's under withering pressure to do that. And whether you think he's got cases or he doesn't have cases, to him, it does not matter. He has to put people in handcuffs. At least in his mind, that's what he thinks has to happen. But it's so much bigger than that. I mean, the revenge, Eugene, as you already noted, extends to people's city.
Good morning. Happy holiday. Happy Labor Day to everyone. Like the videos you guys come in. Thanks for being here.
It extends to their money. He's going into places like Chicago. If he pushes Lisa Cook out of the Fed, it's just a step away from him fully taking over the Fed. And I think a lot of Americans don't understand what that actually means. But we have a really, really clear playbook of what happens when a would-be authoritarian takes over policy in a country, and it typically results in runaway inflation, increase in the price of goods, destabilization of the economy, and capital flight. People will stop investing in the United States, the US dollar will suffer, and your average American will see their savings account become worthless. That's what it means, and that's why people need to realize Trump's revenge campaign is not some abstract thing that doesn't affect them.
I do want to stay on the topic of Lisa Cook for a minute. Can you explain to us what exactly the state of play is with Ms. Cook and whether or not she's going to be able to maintain her job. I mean, it does, not to be dramatic here, but it does sound like the potential stability of the global economy sort of hangs in the balance. Because, I mean, if she is ousted, Trump puts in an appointee, he gets what he wants in terms of lowering interest rates. I mean, it could send the market into some red zone.
And Norm, you are one of her lawyers.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much you're allowed to disclose, but we'd love to hear what's going on.
Jackie, at Democracy Defenders Fund, we have over 125 legal matters, including representing Lisa Cook together with the great folks at Lowell and Associates. I think on that case, because it is active litigation, as much as I love you all, I'm going to say we filed some powerful complaint, brief. We had a lengthy argument in court last week, and we'll be filing another submission on Tuesday morning, and I'm going to rest on those arguments and the papers.
But in terms of you having the ability to clear state the facts, clear the record, did she commit mortgage fraud as the Trump administration is alleging?
I'm just going to stick with what we've said in argument and what we've said in the papers. Keep a sharp eye out. Tuesday morning, we'll have another very hard-hitting filing for you.
Should bring us the news here first. But I also, Joyce, there was another thing that happened this week when it comes to the rule of law, and that was that a federal judge, Gia Cobb, ruled that the Trump administration cannot use expedited removal of undocumented immigrants in the way that they wanted to, which would allow them to fast-track the deportation process. And expedited removal, meaning that they wouldn't have to have a hearing, is why the administration wanted to do that. And Judge Gia Cobb in her ruling said that, quote, the government makes a truly startling argument that those who enter the country illegally are entitled to no process under the Fifth Amendment, but instead must accept whatever grace Congress affords them. Were that right, not only non-citizens, but everyone would be at risk. Fortunately, that is not the law. When you're looking at this ruling, Joyce, what exactly do you think this means for the future of due process in the country?
Your perfect wedding begins at Vistaprint.
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip. Like the videos as you guys come in. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thanks for being here.
This is a case, pardon me, this is a case that's incredibly important, and it got lost a little bit in the press of news this week. You know, for decades, people who arrive at the border without documentation can be summarily returned to their point of origin. That's the way that process has worked. The Trump administration is trying to expand that sort of expedited removal and make it happen further in from the border, often with people who have been here, in their words, people who can't prove that they've been here for more than 2 years. And of course, that proof can be very difficult if you're here without documentation. So this is part of their effort to ramp up their statistics so that they can claim political success. But the impact, and this is what Judge Cobb wrote so eloquently about, is it puts all of us at risk. We've seen this in some of the earlier deportation roundups. They pick folks up, they're not careful to check whether they're American citizens or not, whether they're green card holders or not, and they deport people with little or no recourse. That means that a denial of due process to people who don't have documented immigration status denies all of our due process potentially, and this case is definitely one to watch.
Miles, I want to throw up this retruth that Trump did. It says the world will soon understand nothing can stop what's coming. It has Q plus on his hand. I think that's a nod to the QAnon conspiracy theory. It doesn't seem like he created this. Maybe he did, but this is, a retruth. What does it say that the president does this? It feels like sometimes that he and his team want us all to freak out about it. But then with all of the actions that are happening, it's hard to not see this as part of a strategy.
Well, I think we can safely assume we're not going to see the administration moderate anytime soon. I think anyone who had on their bingo card that Donald Trump was going to tack towards the center and be a unifier is going to lose that game of bingo. So, look, I mean, a lot of times when he does things like this on social media, it's bluster. And yet there are certainly a lot of very shocking policy decisions in the pipeline. And you've seen other Trump allies in recent days post similar things. Laura Loomer, a few days ago, posted something very similar, warning about what was coming. In that case, making reference to journalists who are trying to protect their sources. And I've been saying for a while now that it's likely going to happen, that we see the Trump administration going after journalists, going after their sources, and threatening them that if they don't give up those sources in news stories that were damaging to the president, that they'll try to throw them in jail. And they're going to try to open up Espionage Act cases over this. I mean, that's my assessment. I think it's probably going to bear out. But, look, you have to look no further than Chicago to see how dramatic that this could get. I mean, Eugene, we've talked about this almost every Sunday the past few weeks, but it seems like every time I come on and join you guys, there's a new city that the United States military is planning to head to under Donald Trump. Now, it's not totally clear yet that the military is going to go to Chicago. It doesn't escape my imagination that they're going to deploy the National Guard. But what you will hear this week is people talking more about the Insurrection Act, because Chicago is going to be the first place where we really see an initial resistance to boots on the ground. And that's the Trump card, so to speak, that Donald Trump and Stephen Miller have hinted at for years, is using the Insurrection Act to allow the military to enforce the laws in Chicago and depriving those local leaders of any say whatsoever. Whether or not they do that this week remains to be seen, but that conversation is going to start again this week in earnest.
Like the video, like the video.
In the annals of Washington.
Fair use of reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in. Like the video as you guys come in.
During her PhD in economics, she was an assistant professor at Harvard when she began working at the Federal Reserve Board in the 1970s. By the 1980s, she had joined the faculty at the University of California at Berkeley, where she researched, along with her fellow economist husband, why companies would pay more than they needed to hire and retain their employees. The research found that businesses were rewarded with higher productivity when they offered better pay and working conditions. In 1994, President Bill Clinton appointed Yellen to the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors. 3 years later, Clinton named Yellen the chair of his Council of Economic Advisors. In 2004, she returned to the Fed to serve as the Federal Reserve Bank of the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. And that's when she was given when America's housing bubble popped in 2008 and triggered a financial crisis that led to the worst recession since the Great Depression. In 2010, President Barack Obama appointed Janet Yellen vice chair of the Federal Reserve, and in 2013, Obama nominated Yellen to be the Fed chair, an office she held until 2018. That's when President Donald Trump, in his first term in office, decided against renominating Yellen to lead the Fed and instead nominated today's current Fed chair, Jerome Powell. Yellen later went on to serve as President Joe Biden's Treasury Secretary from 2021 until January of this year. Now the Fed is front and center in the news with President Trump back, this time openly threatening the independence of America's central bank. He's publicly chastised the chairman, Powell, for not heeding his call to slash interest rates. Trump has accused Powell of mismanaging funds during the renovation of the Fed headquarters in Washington and threatened to fire him for cause, which is the only way a Fed chair can actually be forced out before his term ends next year. Trump has already fired Lisa Cook, a Fed governor, who the president accuses of committing mortgage fraud. Cook says she will contest Trump's move in court and has refused to step down. In a way, Janet Yellen was the opening salvo of President Trump's attempts to reshape the Fed into his political tool. Up until Yellen, it was standard practice for presidents to nominate sitting Fed chairs to serve additional terms. Trump broke that norm then and is now going much farther to shatter old norms and to seize control of the Fed. All this as the Fed's dual mandate of managing inflation and promoting full employment is starting to show real strain as the economy today encounters both rising prices and weakening, fueled in part by the president's trade agenda. Joining me now is Janet Yellen, economist, former United States Secretary of the Treasury, former chair of the Federal Reserve from 2014 to 2018. She is now a distinguished fellow in residence at the Brookings Institution, and a really hard person to interview because I don't know what title to use with you because you have all the titles. So welcome, Janet Yellen, to our show.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in.
First of all, about this thing that is an abstraction to most people who don't study it, the independence of the Fed, which is a model that has been copied around the world. The idea that the Federal Reserve should not be subject to political whims. It's really important because all presidents would like high growth and low interest rates, right, in all countries. If you mess with that, there are potentially very, very serious consequences.
Yes, we've seen that in many countries because politicians tend to use monetary policy for political purposes, either to win elections or, in many cases, to try to reduce the cost of financing large deficits or outstanding debts. And what President Trump has said, the reason that he wants to influence the Fed is the United States has a $37 trillion outstanding debt. The interest cost on that is around $1 trillion. And if we could get interest rates down, that would fall. That service cost would fall meaningfully. And this is a thought that many heads of state have had and thought let's pressure our central bank to do exactly that, lower interest rates. It juices the economy, gets down interest expense, and this is the basic recipe for high inflation or hyperinflation. We've seen this very recently in countries like Turkey, which just a year or so ago had around an 80% inflation rate, and a year or so ago also in Argentina with similarly high inflation. And of course, we can go back to Germany in the 1920s or Hungary after World War II. In every case, it's a central bank that is an independent, a head of state that wants low interest rates or wants to be able to have its central bank buy up the debt and print money. And this is the recipe for runaway inflation. So Americans need to worry about that, and especially because the dollar is the bedrock currency, and U.S. Treasuries, the fundamental safe asset in the entire global financial system. All of that rests on good management of monetary policy. And as you said, independent central banks, this doesn't mean the central bank sets its own goal or goals. In the United States, Congress has mandated legally the goals of price stability and maximum employment. In many countries around the world, it's similar. Always price stability or low inflation is a mandated goal. And what independence means is that the technocrats at the central bank use economic reasoning data to try to figure out what are the best settings of monetary policy to achieve these goals, free of political interference. And that is what President Trump is putting at risk. And there will be a cost to every American that could be profound if this is allowed to happen.
So part of you've obviously had a great deal of experience with recessions. We have several of them. You also started your career at the Fed in the midst of inflation, but we don't have as much of a memory of inflation in the United States. But in terms of the toolbox available to the central bank, to the Federal Reserve, inflation, long-term, out-of-control inflation is a much bigger problem. We actually have pretty good tools to fix recessions. You get some creative destruction, but you can lower interest rates, you can flood the zone, and you can get the economy back on track. You get stuck in long-term inflation, it can ruin your country.
Well, it can be very difficult to bring inflation down. It becomes ingrained because we've seen this in the 1970s and early 80s in the United States. When you have chronic high inflation, households, workers, businesses come to expect it, and they base their pricing decisions on the notion it will continue. And it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then the only way to really get it down is to really
hit the like button, you guys. As you're commenting, make sure you hit the like button. It takes a few seconds to hit the like button, and it's free. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We're trying to hit 50K by next month. Thanks for tuning in.
Economy with weak conditions, high unemployment, to really force inflation down and eventually bring inflation expectations down with it. And Volcker, some people may remember in 1982 or 83, he was faced with very high inflation. He said, I'm going to change this and show people this is going to come to an end. And we had one of the deepest recessions of the post-war period, but it did succeed in bringing it down. And he established credibility for the Federal Reserve, which it has prized and taken very seriously, that it has an obligation to anchor inflationary expectations at a low level, at levels consistent with price stability, or the Fed's interpretation is 2%, according to the price index that they measure inflation by.
Why are women everywhere choosing ABX, the new tummy tuck alternative?
I got the tummy tuck results without the tummy tuck downtime.
Get a flat, tight tummy with Sonobello's new ABX. One visit, fat, and loose excess skin removal.
Sonobello's ABX is a tremendous breakthrough, combine both liposuction and skin resection safely to be able to custom tailor our treatment for the patient.
I got a flat, tight tummy thanks to ABX.
I went to Sonobello and I did the ABX. I feel confident, and most of all, I feel like the old me before I had my baby.
I had Sonobello ABX over 3 months ago. I just can't believe it. Like, it's so bomb.
It feels good to feel good and look good.
I wish I would have done it way sooner.
The mommy belly is gone. Schedule your free, no obligation consultation now. Sono Bello, it's your life. Live it beautifully. Tyson, have a good day.
I will have a good day, Mom. Hello, my name is Tyson Hollerman. I'm 15 years old, and until today, I have been homeschooled by my mom.
Our march to a state championship begins today.
Hello,
Like
Father.
the video, like the video.
That they measure inflation by.
New reaction today as President Trump targets more American cities for possible National Guard deployment. Here's Maryland's governor.
If the President of the United States were to have a serious conversation with me and say, what can we do, particularly when you look at the cost of the National Guard of well over $1 million a day, what could we actually do? Do you know what I would tell him? I would tell him things like, we need to make sure we're increasing funding for local law enforcement, and we have to invest in our community groups and community organizations. That's a serious approach, how to address this issue. But asking me to deploy my National Guard, people who are not trained for municipal policing, is just not a serious approach.
And this comes as federal authorities prepare to flood Chicago in just a few days. Well, joining me now is National Action Network President and host of Politics Nations here at MSNBC, Reverend Sharpton. Good to see you, my friend, on this Labor Day weekend. So, Rev, you have Maryland Governor Wes Moore there, who seems to be taking a harder line against Trump. The headline, in fact, in the Washington Post marks this shift, reading, "Why Maryland's governor leaned into a fight with Trump. This one is personal." What's your takeaway, Rev, from his remarks and what might have caused Moore to change his tone?
I think that what Moore is changing his tone, or it appears to be, is consistent with his position all along, and that is that there is clear evidence, clear data that says crime is going down in Baltimore and other places that the president has mentioned. And now he's using the whole question of going after immigrants, people that are migrants that are here, using ICE to really come into these cities. And these cities are certainly showing that they can rise to the occasion of bringing down crime and dealing with the question of immigration. And I think that what the president has done and has done consistently is go after cities with black mayors, and in the state of Maryland, a black governor.
Well, local leaders in Chicago are certainly bracing for a wave of ICE and Border Patrol agents sometime this week amid some very vocal pushback. Listen to this.
What his ultimate desire is to come into our city, to break the Constitution, and to break our democracy, and to break our city. He is reckless and out of control. He is the biggest threat to our democracy that we've experienced in the history of our country.
Chicago Mayor Johnson there. So are all of these decisions from Trump leading further away from democracy into autocracy? I mean, what is the message that the administration is sending, Rev?
The message is that the president is seeking to be what he joked about, or was he joking, is the question about a dictatorship. Isn't it ironic that the Republican Party and the conservatives in general were the ones saying that national government should not interfere with states? They were the states' rights party. And now all of a sudden they want national government to do exactly that. So this is clearly an overreach, and it will not protect citizens from either those that are criminal that have been here as immigrants or those that are committing crimes in these cities. The real question is, why is this president being very selective? Crime rates are higher in the home borough or the home district of the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, than it is in the whole state of Maryland, in Baltimore or in Chicago. Why aren't we sending National Guard there? Why aren't we sending ICE other places? Why is this being so selective? So he's trying to feed red meat to his base, and he's trying to, in my opinion, profile blacks in higher office.
Thank you, Paul.
So Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson was recently on Morning Joe, where he was unclear whether he would welcome federal funding for law enforcement. Take a listen, Rev.
Do you believe the streets of Chicago would be safer if you got all of those other extraordinary programs put back into place, which do have a history of being successful, if that's complemented by having 5,000 more cops on the streets of Chicago?
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers. That's what I'm saying. That is an antiquated approach. I'm saying we've invested in detectives.
Mr. Mayor, are you hearing what I'm saying? I'm agreeing with you that all of these other social programs are extraordinarily important. I just need a yes or a no.
Please subscribe. Please hit the like button.
What's your takeaway from that exchange, Rev?
my takeaway is that clearly the mayor, who will be on Politics Nation today, is saying that you cannot deal with an end result without dealing with root causes, because then you're only going to be getting the same results. They need to have programs funded. They need local police funded. When you see they've taken away $1 billion from what is needed in the city in terms of these areas that they claim they're concerned about, then how is the remedy to bring in federal officers, law enforcement, or designated by the federal government? Are we trying to find a solution, or are we trying to scapegoat people for a problem that all of us are concerned about? And there is documented evidence that have been dealing adequately in some of these cities, the ones he's named, all of these cities, they've been adequately taking crime down and doing what they're supposed to do in terms of dealing with immigrants.
Okay. Thank you, Rev. Appreciate your time as always.
Like the videos, you guys come in.
On autopilot.
Like the videos, you guys come in. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. To hit the like button. It's free. Can I please get 50 people to hit the thumbs up above the video, below the video? 50 people to hit the thumbs up above the video, below the video. It's a holiday and I'm here. Going live. Let's continue fair use reaction clip.
As Congress returns from summer recess, the Jeffrey Epstein scandal is back on the agenda. The Epstein estate plans to hand over the convicted sex offender's birthday book and other documents to Congress on September 8th. The book is reportedly, as you know, filled with well wishes from friends and associates, including an explicit message and drawing by President Trump, which Trump denies he did. But most importantly, lawmakers and the public will get to hear more firsthand accounts from Epstein survivors. The Washington Post reports that House Oversight Chair James Comer and members of his committee will meet privately with some of the survivors on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, Epstein survivors, including our next guest, will join Congressman Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie at a press conference on Capitol Hill. Joining us now are those Epstein survivors, Jess Michaels and Teresa Helm. Teresa is also Survivor Services Coordinator at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. Thank you both so much for coming on the weekend. Jess, I want to start with you. You will be meeting with at least Ro Khanna on Capitol Hill. Are you hoping that more Republicans add you to their docket, that you meet with Comer? And if you were to meet with some of these Republicans and James Comer, what would you say to them?
I think what we're looking for with all of these meetings is courage on the part of Republican representatives, because this is most importantly a bipartisan issue. This is not something that anyone on any side of the aisle should be for. No one should be for child sex trafficking and allowing perpetrators to escape justice, and no one should be for systems failing to prosecute over decades.
And I want to ask both of you, actually. We are seeing a little bit of movement in Congress. I mean, House Oversight Chairman James Comer, as Eugene noted, is going to be meeting with survivors on Tuesday. I'm not sure if both of you are on his docket. There are also a number of documents that he says he is subpoenaed for and is going to potentially release from the Epstein estate. But one, are you planning on getting on James Comer's schedule? And then two, what would you like to hear from the White House on this? And what does their lack of acknowledging any of this mean to both of you?
Go ahead, Teresa.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Jess, good to see you here.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. I look forward to seeing you in a few days. Yes, I hope to meet with as many people who are willing to listen. I think it's very important for us to finally get at least some kind of FaceTime here on the subject. And what I would really be hopeful that I see from the White House and the administration is support on this, and not willing to, at this point, I feel like we've gone further past the point of survivors being not even at the table or in the discussion. We've gone to the point of being almost even silenced or just entirely bypassed. So I'm hopeful for support is what I'm hopeful for, and the acknowledgement, and to stand with us like we stand with, we are all in this together. We all want to protect children. We all have the obligation and the responsibility to protect children and people in general. So support would be truly, truly wonderful. We are all, this is just humanity, dignity. This is what this is. This support would be wonderful.
Yeah. I think, Jess, I just want to get you on that as well. Are you in talks with James Comer's office?
I won't be in James Comer's office, but I will have other opportunities to be speaking to representatives. Look, there's something that's also, I think, being missed by a lot of people. The American people are with Epstein survivors. They are, if you've looked at any of my comments on social media, people are appalled at what's happening. They want justice, not just for us. They understand that this affects them and how justice is going to play out in the future for if this ever happens again. We need systemic change, looking at all the failures that have happened over decades. And we need to have policy change that's going to make sure that none of this happens again. Nothing has changed, as I understand it, since Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced and put in prison. Nothing has changed in any of those policies. We are asking, and we seem to be now, we seem to have become the representative of a lot of sexual assault survivors out there that have never been heard and never been seen. So I do think that the wise thing would be for this administration and anyone meeting with us is to stand with us and support us, because there is not a single person in this country that would ever say, yes, all of this is okay as is.
Jess and Teresa, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'd like to read the statement from the family of Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre, who, as you both know, died by suicide. The family was talking about the Ghislaine Maxwell transcripts that were released from Todd Blanche's interview with Maxwell. And in it, they say about that transcript, this travesty of justice entirely invalidates the experiences of the many brave survivors who put their safety, security, and lives on the line to ensure her conviction, including our sister. During Todd Blanche's bizarre interview, she is never challenged about her court-proven lies, providing her a platform to rewrite history. Teresa, what is your reaction to the released transcripts of this interview with the convicted sex trafficker, Maxwell?
People love ArchFit technology so much that Skechers put it into even more
Like the video, like the video. Fair use, reaction clip. Please don't forget to subscribe. There's about 232 in the building. Please hit the subscribe button. We're trying to hit 50K. Continue to hit the like button. 100 people to hit the like button. Thank you. It's free to hit the like. Let's continue.
I can very clearly tell you I felt pretty gutted, to be perfectly clear and honest on that. You know, I sat and listened to this woman's calm, articulate voice. And you know what? That is the same calm and articulate voice that led me to believe that I was in a safe environment, and that is the same calm voice that led me to walk myself to Jeffrey's home after meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell that day. I entirely, wholeheartedly agree with Virginia's family, and I was appalled. I continue to be appalled at the release and just the entire situation surrounding this interview with Ghislaine Maxwell. It is absolutely, it goes so far beyond throwing salt on wounds or anything like that. It's entirely destructive to survivors such as myself that had gone through personal experience with her, lived experience with Ghislaine Maxwell. And it entirely is devastating to the entire survivor community that if we're going to give this woman a platform and elevate her voice, when the only voices that should be continued to be elevated and platformed are the survivors of this case and many other cases. I entirely agree with Jess on this as far as systemic review, reform, because this goes so far beyond, this is such a high profile case, and I get that. And it goes so much, every single solitary soul on this earth, really, because the magnitude of assault and sexual abuse and violence that we have, this touches everyone.
Yeah, and we are still waiting to see whether or not Ghislaine Maxwell will come and testify before Congress in a very public setting where both Republicans and Democrats will be able to ask her questions. Jess Michaels and Teresa Helm, thank you so much for coming on today and for sharing your stories.
Like the video, like the video.
Crucial dispatches from the front lines of the citizens' resistance, your resistance, that has taken shape over these past months as Donald complicit Republicans have waged relentless attacks on our democratic institutions. And that brings us this morning to the town of Cape May, New Jersey. Might seem like an unlikely front line of the resistance, yet every Saturday, a small but dedicated group known as the Bridge Brigade gathers at the local pedestrian overpass with protest signs, refusing to let their neighbors forget that their democracy is under siege. The first gathering in March drew maybe 10 people. Since then, they've shown up nearly every Saturday, rain or shine. Now they average about 20 people. On the 4th of July, nearly 30 turned out. It's not a lot of people. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make national headlines. But it is resistance. And those protesters are persistent. Their goal is not simply the time-honored tradition of protest. It is also community building. Their weekly presence is a civic drumbeat, a reminder that Trump's power is not inevitable, nor is it impenetrable. It is a reminder that they will not get used to what is happening, and that people still care enough to show up. may seem like a small gesture, but few of the greatest human-powered civil rights movements in history were sustained by one or even several grand moments. Movements, protests, and democracy itself endure because of the steady commitment of ordinary people. Proof that the quest for freedom, equality, and liberty and the will to resist in defense of those things is stronger than any effort to silence it. It's not just protests. Civic courage comes in many forms. Small acts of defiance add up. There's the citizen who refuses to look away when ICE comes for a neighbor. The teacher who makes every child feel welcome and valued. The organizers knocking on doors to speak face to face with voters, making sure Medicaid cuts can't be buried under spin or from online disinformation. Together, these acts keep us from sliding into normalization. Together, these acts hold us all accountable to one another. Focusing only on the outcome misses the point. Because every single wrench thrown into the authoritarian wheel slows it down and rips up its gears. Philosophers Michael Brownstein and Alex Madba warn in the New York Times that the danger isn't in losing, the danger is in doing nothing. Inaction is defeat. It allows strong men to rewrite reality unchallenged. Losing loudly, they argue, preserves a record of dissent. It shifts public opinion. It keeps the contest alive. As they put it, quote, when people fight principled battles that they know they may lose, others pay attention. The Texas Democrats stand gave us their cause time to move the needle of public perception. Their battle invigorated a nationwide conversation about how elected leaders can resist America's anti-democratic turn. Texas Democrats fought a battle they almost certainly expected to lose in order to help the rest of us grasp the stakes of current events. Their choice reflected a core tenet of collective action. They demonstrated for those of us who believe in free and fair elections and in democracy itself that there are moments when we cannot wait around for someone else to do something. So now, Texas Democrats walking out on gerrymanders didn't stop Republicans from rigging the map, but they inspired other states to fight fire with their own redistricting maps. The civil rights hero John Lewis did not see immediate change when he marched in Selma in 1965, but he and those who marched with him forced a nation to reckon with the violence that stood in the way of democracy. Today, these small acts of resistance are unfolding across America, carried out by ordinary people far from the halls of power. In Manhattan, the city comptroller, Brad Lander, and other activists have been showing up to immigration court to observe ICE proceedings. In June, Lander was arrested after linking arms with a man who agents were trying to detain. Now he's urging migrants to skip court hearings altogether, calling them abduction traps. But here's the thing. This isn't Brad Lander's job. He's the New York City comptroller. He was there as a citizen, albeit a citizen with some authority. But going to court to bear witness and stand in solidarity with undocumented immigrants is something open to all of us. It's something an increasing number of Americans are, in fact, doing. For some Americans, the resistance has gone beyond quiet protest. Ali Misdal observes that at all points in history, there are people who are willing to break the law when the law is evil. Martin Luther King Jr., in his famous letter from Birmingham jail, addressed that moral challenge directly in response to 8 white clergymen who had denounced his nonviolent protests as the work of an extremist. King wrote, quote, "There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over and men are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair. I hope, sirs, you can understand our legitimate and unavoidable impatience. Express a great deal of anxiety over our willingness to break laws. There is certainly a legitimate concern. One may well ask, how can you advocate breaking some laws and obeying others? The answer lies in the fact that there are 2 types of laws, just and unjust. One has not only a legal but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. I would agree with St. Augustine that an unjust law is no law at all. I submit that an individual who breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust and who willingly accepts the penalty of imprisonment in order to arouse the conscience of the community over its injustice
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip.
In order to arouse the conscience of the community over its injustice is in reality expressing the highest respect for law. Americans are also fighting for their democracy in town halls across the country, where citizens are holding their leaders' feet to the fire and demanding answers of them. On Wednesday night, the Republican Congressman Barry Moore of Alabama was heckled so relentlessly in Baldwin County that he fled through the back door without even saying goodbye. That's probably because chants of shame followed him out of the room. Before his great escape, Moore was grilled on everything from Medicare cuts and rural hospital closures to tariffs, immigration, and abortion, and Trump's deployment of the National Guard in Washington, D.C. Moore is far from alone. The few members of Congress who dared to hold town halls this August have faced angry crowds, Republicans and Democrats alike, demanding answers on immigration, Medicaid cuts, the war in Gaza, and more. In Maine, Republican Senator Susan Collins was drowned out by protesters at a ribbon-cutting ceremony as chants of shame, shame, shame rang out. In Ohio, Republican Congressman Warren Davidson tried to tout what he called Trump's big wins at his town hall, only to be met with outrage over the National Guard's deployment to Washington and Trump's cruel treatment of undocumented immigrants. And Republicans Mark Alford of Missouri and Josh Brecheen of Oklahoma faced equally hostile audiences this week, again pressed over Trump's decision to send the National Guard into Washington and Los Angeles. This is how power shifts. Not through poll-tested speeches, but through individual acts of courage, through the audacity of crowds that drive the powerful out the back door, through neighbors who refuse to comply with cruelty. As Mistel puts it, quote, anything we do, anything at all, to slow, frustrate, or sabotage our government's efforts, or to help another person who is being made to suffer by these people has value. To do nothing is to be complicit in the horrors we are visiting upon the world. These people want us to give in to despair. They want us to give up. They want us to look at their scoreboard of victories and determine that the game is unwinnable. So I'm playing a different game, one that is not about winning or losing, but helping or not helping. That is what we can do for now. It's a good reminder for all of us. Democracy defenders are already in the fight. They're on the bridges in Cape May. They're in the parks and the plazas of our cities and the heart of Trump country, in courthouses from New York to San Diego, in town halls where citizens refuse to let the lies stand. They're turning Labor Day into another No King's Day protest. They're marching in Bernie Sanders' Workers Over Billionaires rallies. Ordinary people in every corner of this country are declaring we will not bend the knee. That's where the fight for democracy lives now, in your local communities, far, far from the halls of power.
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip. Come on in, like the video as you guys come in.
All right, welcome to the weekend prime time, and we're going to jump right into our top story this evening. Breaking tonight, yet another major legal setback against Donald Trump's extreme immigration policies, all of it playing out in the dark of night with nothing less than the lives of hundreds of children at stake. A federal judge temporarily blocked the administration from deporting more than 600 Guatemalan children back to their home country, several of whom have even expressed fear about returning. Now, the suit was filed in the middle of the night by immigrant advocacy groups. The New York Times reports, quote, in its 25-page complaint, the National Immigration Law Center said that the children had active cases before immigration courts across the country and that their repatriation would violate the law and the Constitution. It also called the government's actions unlawful and reckless. Throughout Trump's time in politics, he has repeatedly claimed that his immigration crack is about going after the worst of the worst. But let me just read you the background of one of the plaintiffs in this case, a 10-year-old indigenous girl identified only by the initials LGML. She speaks a rare language. She's detained at a children's shelter in Texas. Her mother is deceased, and she suffered abuse and neglect from other caregivers. And our government was about to put her on a plane and ship her off to a completely different country. This is who the Trump administration wants you to believe are the worst of the worst. Joining us now is Efren Oliveras, the Vice President of Litigation at the National Immigration Law Center. His team filed that emergency request that stopped these deportations. Efren, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for making time for us tonight. We understand that you have stayed up over the last 24 hours working on this case. Just talk to us a little bit about what happened here. How did you find out about this, and how did you proceed to file the paperwork necessary to get this court order to stop? As we understand it, some of these children, I believe, were already on the plane getting ready to take off from Texas when the decision was made for them not to be deported.
Good evening. It's great to be with you all. I hope we're under different circumstances and for different reasons. But yes, my team and I and dozens of advocates across the country were up all night as ICE agents and their contractors were showing up at shelters in Texas, in Arizona, and other parts of the country, trying to pick up children with 2 hours notice, 3 hours notice in the middle of the night and send them to Guatemala. Children who had pending asylum claims, open immigration cases. We heard about this from the legal service providers, the attorneys for the children in their immigration proceedings, who started seeing odd things happen, particularly to Guatemalan children. For example, the calendar hearings that they had for next week, for next month, all of a sudden disappeared from the calendar. They just dropped. And that's a sign when a child is about to be removed. So that started to happen to dozens of Guatemalan children. So people started sounding the alarm, comparing notes, and that's why we got here.
Efren, the timing here is pretty unbelievable. Sunday morning of Labor Day weekend, a government lawyer's quoted in Politico calling this, first launch of a pilot program. What was the government's intention here, trying to do this in the dead of night on a holiday weekend?
The government's position at the hearing today was that this is nothing other than repatriation. Reuniting children with their parents is what they claim, at the request of their parents in Guatemala, and that this had been going on for weeks, had been in the works, and the planning had happened. The judge was very quick to call the government out that if that were true, Why were they doing this in the middle of the night with 2 hours notice and rushing to get the children onto those planes? That's why we had to file this complaint at 1 o'clock this morning, call the court's emergency line, try to get a judge on the line, get an emergency ruling, which we got around 4:30 in the morning, and still children were put on planes. And that's what led us to seek further relief from the court and had a hearing today at 12:30 where the judge finally halted all removals of all Guatemalan children in ORR custody for 14 days.
Can you talk us through how unusual this is? Even tariffs have rules.
Like the
court
video.
strike down the vast majority of President Trump's import tax, just the latest in a string of legal losses for the president's agenda.
Plus, a former Trump cabinet official is set to face fiery questions from Congress on the Jeffrey Epstein case, what we could learn from Alex Acosta.
And later, Trump eyes Chicago, how the Windy City prepares for a possible federal crackdown like the one we saw in D.C. You can see people getting off the plane and buses being driven away. Efren Olieres, Vice President of Litigation at the National Immigration Law Center, whose team filed the emergency request that stopped these deportations, joined us earlier this evening. Take a listen.
These are children, and what kind of country have we become that the most powerful and rich country in the world?
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in. Like the video as you guys come in.
That I had to read multiple times. I'm going to put the headline right here on the screen. Trump's urban power grab raises fear of troops at the polls. You go on to say, legal and constitutional experts worry that Trump is laying the groundwork to use the Guard to seize control of any city he wants to bring to heel. On Monday, he signed an executive order that primes the Guard for rapid mobilization across the country. And so you and I have spoken at great length about the prospect of Donald Trump kind of using these deployments right now in LA, less so in DC because of the Home Rule Act, but across the country as a test case to be able to do it in other states, namely swing states with big blue liberal strongholds that really serve as the decider of whether the election is going to go red or blue. And so what are you looking at here most specifically with regards to the legality of these deployments, these rapid deployments of federal troops across the country?
Yeah, let me first start by saying I need everyone to pay attention to this and watch this video to the end, because there is a lot that we're going to cover, and it is super important. And also share this video with your friends, because too few people understand the risks that are facing our democracy with Donald Trump's deployment of federal law enforcement that are themselves sort of militarized, paramilitary operations, as well as the military itself. Look, I believe, and have been saying for some time, that Donald Trump is a dictator, and that we are further along the road of authoritarianism than people want to admit. You know, if you go back and look at what people in Hungary said about their country, they too were very slow to say that Viktor Orban was a full-out dictator. Donald Trump is not deploying the military in these cities because he cares about the people of those cities. He's not even really deploying them for immigration. Now, he has made ICE like what would be essentially the fourth largest military in the world if it was military, right? So he's deploying a ton of resources around deportations. I believe, though, this whole thing with the National Guard, the deployment of the Marines, is about the 2026 elections and perhaps even the 2028 elections, when he wants to be able to be in control of the ground in which people are voting, particularly in Democratic cities. And so Jim Saxo, who's a reporter at Democracy Rocket, wrote a piece about this. And lest you think this is just something that people on the left are worried about, or someone like me, who's very prominent in the pro-democracy community, is focused on, that article quotes Patrick Eddington, who is a senior fellow at the Cato Institute. And the Cato Institute is, a pretty right-wing libertarian think tank, well-respected, but definitely not the kind of organization that usually would agree with my thoughts or would be contributing their input to a Democracy Docket article. And he goes so far as to say that the first place where they may try this is Virginia in the in the off-year elections, the 2025 elections this November, as a dry run.
And so how are you thinking about this in terms of the ongoing litigation in California? So there is a lawsuit in California. I can't remember if there was an attempt for a preliminary injunction or a temporary restraining order in that state, but in any case, that failed. And so now this case regarding the legality of deploying troops, Marines, National Guard to Los Angeles is being challenged in court. And so how does the outcome of that case, how is that going to inform how you look at Virginia?
So, Brian, I'm really glad you asked about this, because I think that this case in California, the Newsom v. Trump case, may very well be the most important case for democracy right now. It is something that Democracy Docket is covering every nit and jot of what happens in that case. This was, as you say, born out of Trump's deployment of the National Guard and the Marines in Los Angeles, citing
essentially a national emergency or a law enforcement emergency when there was not one. And Governor sued. He went to the district court on a preliminary injunction. The district court actually agreed with Governor Newsom, but the Ninth Circuit reversed it and basically said that they were going to take at face value for purposes.
Like the video, like the video.
The president said it was an emergency, and therefore they were going to take that at face value. That is now that then went back to the trial court, where there has now been a full trial, and we are awaiting a decision. And if ever there were a reason to hit the subscribe button on this channel, this case alone would be the reason. Make sure you hit the bell, because I promise you, when that decision comes out, you're going to want to be alerted that there is more content coming out of Brian's channel. But to give you some sense of
ready to start eating healthier? Meet Kachava. Kachava is the world's healthiest all-in-one meal shake.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Please hit the subscribe button. We're trying to hit 50K by next month. Please hit the subscribe button.
Why this case is so important, this California case is so vital to the future of democracy. This is what Kristi Noem, the Director of Homeland Security, said about their deployments in Los Angeles. And Brian, I want to put the quote up so that people can read it for themselves as I say it. We're not going away. We are staying here to liberate the city from the socialists and the burdensome leadership that the governor and this mayor have placed on this country and what they have tried to insert into the city. All right. So set aside all of the rhetoric. She is saying that they are in Los Angeles to liberate the city from the burdensome leadership of the governor and the mayor. Okay, you know what the burdensome leadership of the governor and mayor is otherwise? Free and fair elections. Yeah. Like literally, she is there saying, we are sending in federal masked agents, and Donald Trump is sending in the military because we want to liberate the city of Los Angeles from its elected leadership. I mean, that is the definition of tyranny. I mean, that literally is what a dictator does, right? They say, you have elected the leaders you want, but we are going to undo them. We're going to lift their burden, and we are going to take over through the military and through heavily armed masked agents. This is a 5-alarm fire for democracy. And as we said, because we started by talking about this in Virginia and in other places in 2026, this is not going to end in California. I mean, if this is how she views and how Donald Trump views, Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass in Los Angeles when there are no elections in sight, just imagine what they are going to say when there are elections happening in 2026. And as I said, it is not me. It is a conservative at the Cato Institute who has said, watch out for November of 2025 in Virginia to see if Donald Trump and Glenn Young can pull it there.
Well, look, you have been absolutely clear-eyed about not just following these threats as they relate to the ballot box, but also forward-leaning in terms of bringing these lawsuits and actually fighting Trump in the courts where he's trying to pull these anti-democratic extrajudicial measures. So for anybody who's watching right now, one very small step that we can all take to support the invaluable work that Mark and his team are doing is to sign up for Democracy Docket, which is his news outlet that focuses on everything voting in elections. It's something that I use on a daily basis. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Mark, you had mentioned how California and Gavin Newsom were not granted this temporary restraining order or this injunction on Trump's deployment of these troops because they just kind of relied on the presumption of regularity. It's that if the federal government comes in and says that there is a predicate to be able to send in the troops, that they are relying on the goodwill of the federal government from decades and centuries past to say, hey, if they say that's necessary, we're going to defer to them. Does something like this go away if, based on the merits of this case, the courts actually rule in Gavin Newsom's favor and against Donald Trump? Do other judges still continue to heap this presumption of regularity onto Trump, or do they start to recognize that this is somebody who's not acting in good faith, who doesn't deserve the presumption of regularity, and when you have governors who request these preliminary injunctions or temporary restraining orders against these illegal troop deployments, that the deference should actually be paid to the states and not the federal government?
That's absolutely right. I mean, look, I wrote a piece months ago about the presumption of regularity and said that if judges don't get over this and don't stop providing it to Donald Trump, we have very little chance of surviving as a democracy over the course of 4 years. And we have slowly but surely seen some judges depart from it. But I have to be honest with you, it is still the basic baseline that judges operate under. Even the Ninth Circuit, which is one of the more reasonable circuits, did in the preliminary injunction. Now, hopefully that'll change after the trial when there is evidence presented. But this reminds me of something that I wrote about for Democracy Docket this morning. About what's going on with the train stations. And I know you're asking, well, what the hell does all this have to do with train stations? What it has to do with train stations is Donald Trump has had the Department of Transportation take over Union Station in Washington, D.C., take over
Penn Station in New York City, and also the major Amtrak station in Boston. And I don't think that this is an accident. I mean, he's not taking over these train stations because he wants to make sure that, there is better service. He's not taking over these train stations because he is, like Joe Biden, a big fan of Amtrak, right? He is taking over these train stations both because symbolically dictators love train stations, right? I mean, how did the Holocaust happen if but through train stations? What has Vladimir Putin done in the Ukraine?
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in.
Joining me now, we have Arizona Congresswoman Yasamin Ansari. She is on the Oversight, Education, and Natural Resources Committees. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here, Congresswoman. You just heard DHS Secretary Noem there talking about expanding ICE operations. On Saturday, you visited the Eloy, I hope I said that right, the Eloy ICE Detention Center in southern Arizona for the second time. You spoke with some 24 or so detainees and described conditions there as horrific. What did you witness there, and how are detainees being treated, starting with them, as I understand from your reporting, getting rashes all over their bodies from heavily chlorinated water they are drinking?
I left Eloy Detention Center yesterday, again, heartbroken by the conditions that the detainees are experiencing every single day. This is nothing short of a prison with the complete lack of even basic needs for detainees. Like you mentioned, I spoke with more than 24 women. One woman in particular, she has leukemia. She's been there for 5 months. She's lost 55 pounds, and she has still not been able to see a specialist for the cancer that she is dying from. She has bruises all over her body. When I say that this woman was in complete agony, talking to me and saying the only thing she wants at this point is to see a doctor who can treat her, not even trying to amend her case at this point. I am not exaggerating. It was a very heartbreaking scene. I am going to be working very hard to demand that she sees a leukemia specialist or oncologist immediately and get the treatment that...
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Let's continue. Like the video as you guys come in.
Time to file an appeal with the Supreme Court. CNN's chief data analyst Harry Inton joins me now on how Americans are feeling about tariffs. And it's interesting, you and I were talking about this. I never viewed tariffs as popular with Americans, but at least for Trump's base and supporters, at one point, they were really giving him the benefit of the doubt here.
Yeah, they really were, Bianna. And I will note, it was not just the base. It was the overall American public. And they have turned against tariffs the same way college football pundits have turned against Arch Manning after his performance in Columbus on Saturday. Look at this. New tariffs on imported goods. You go back to November of 2024. Look, the popular position was favor. They favored new tariffs on imported goods. 52%, 48% opposed. You go to this side of the election. Look at that. The opposition up like a rocket. We're talking about 60% opposing new tariffs compared to just 40% in favor. So it was majority favor back when Trump was reelected in November of 2024. Now it's a clear 3 in 5 Americans oppose it. The Americans have gotten the taste of the tariffs and they spit it right out.
So is the taste paying more? I mean, because that's how economists have always described this, as actually a tax on consumers.
Yes, it's exactly. Why is the opposition up like a rocket? Well, it all comes down to money out of the pocketbook, right? Impact of tariffs on prices. Look at this in the short term. 77% of Americans now agree they increase, they raise in the short term. Look at this itty bitty number at the bottom. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. When you can count it on your own hand, you know it's a small percentage. Just 4% of Americans believe that in the short term, tariffs decrease prices. Long term, look, this has long been the Donald Trump argument, right? That even if there's short term pain in the long term will pay off. Not according to Americans. Impact of tariffs on prices, even over the long term, look at that. 50% say increase, just 25%, just half the level say decrease, and about 25% in this case is better than 4%. 25% is way less than 50% of Americans who say that, in fact, prices will increase over the long term because of tariffs.
Can you do me a favor and go find who the 4% are?
I will go ahead. I will do some on the street reporting. I'm sure I can go out to Times Square and see what I can find out.
Okay, but in all seriousness, from the tariff policy to the trade policy, how is it impacting Trump's overall approval?
Right, okay. If this was happening in a bubble, right, it was, okay, I don't like tariffs, but it isn't impacting my overall view of Trump. I think Trump would be like, forget about it, doesn't matter. But this is why the political implications are so important, because Fox News literally asked, what's the top reason that Trump's doing a bad job? What ranks as number one? The economy and tariffs ranks as number one. The number one reason why those who disapprove of Trump think he's doing a bad job, it comes right back to tariffs. The bottom line is this: when prices go up, presidential approval ratings go down, and that's exactly what we are seeing in the polling.
Perhaps this was the deflection that Ron Brownstein was talking about in a segment in the last hour about the increase in these ICE raids, because they're deflecting from something the president is not happy about.
That's often something that Donald Trump will do, is if he sees something he doesn't like, he's going to go in the other direction and try and bring the American mindset with him.
All right. Harry Inton, good to be with you.
Nice to be with you.
All right, with us now, he is Congressman Lloyd Doggett, a Democrat from Texas. Congressman, I got to ask you, you're in Austin, I think, this morning. I don't know if you heard Harry Inton just there take this unprovoked swipe at quarterback Arch Manning. I just want to give you a chance to respond to that this morning, since you had to listen to it.
Well, absolutely. I was appalled. I'm very much Longhorn and Hook 'em Horns. We're going to have a better week ahead. It was a tough game, well played by Ohio State, and I think Texas will get better and better and come back, and it will be a good season for us. That's part of the issue of the day, John.
After what Harry said, I had to give you equal time. I think there are rules for me to do that there. Listen, Congressman, you also heard Harry there talking about tariffs and the slipping popularity of the tariffs and concerns about the economy. What are you hearing from your constituents around Austin?
Well, those that remember, President Trump told us in January that he was going to bring prices drastically down. And whether it's a cup of coffee or a new car or any number of things in between at the grocery store, prices keep going up as a direct result of President Trump imposing a new tax by himself called a tariff. And we are now paying significantly more than we were at the beginning of the year in Trump tariff taxes. I think as manufacturers or as importers deplete their inventory, we will have more and more of an impact. Don't know the impact on the holidays, but the prices will be higher everywhere. John, I see all of this just like the other issues you've been discussing this morning and reporting on, whether it's the invasion of American cities with the military, the tariff tax, the decision by the president to repeal or terminate funding that a Republican Congress had approved. All of these things are just part of a pattern of President Trump wanting unrestrained one-man rule, which we call tyranny or dictatorship. And that's the path that we're on, and the Republican Congress is sitting there idly, willing to approve anything that he does, or at least to be quiet about it if they're unwilling to give it a direct approval.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in. Continue to hit the like button. We should already be at 100 likes, you guys. Please double tap that screen, like the video, hit the thumbs up above the video, below the video. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. I hope everyone's subscribing. Subscribe to the page. Thank you.
I voted previously against a continuing resolution. We faced the question of whether we are in what is the least worst alternative. Are we in a worse situation if Trump is there with no government funding approved, or in trying to reach some kind of agreement where we know we are dealing with a totally untrustworthy individual in the form of Trump? The fact that a Republican Congress approves money for international peacekeeping, for democracy promotion, for economic development, so that we don't let the Chinese rule the underdeveloped world, all of these are things that Trump just said, I'll terminate it, and you can't do anything about it. We could do something about it this week or next, but Republicans are unlikely to let us even have a debate or vote on this because they are so intent, so fearful, I guess, really, of Trump imposing a mean tweet against one of them. They won't take action if it differs from Trump in the slightest. The only exception has been the Jeffrey Epstein sex tapes, and we'll see whether Republicans are willing to get to the bottom of that or not.
Discharge fishing could ripen. You could have a vote on that soon. This month, it does sound like you have some concerns, as do many Democrats, that actually shutting down the government might give the president even more power to take unilateral action. But I do want to ask you about another subject quickly, because I know it's something you care deeply about. Obviously, the floods in Texas, which killed so many people, including children. You are still asking questions of the federal government, and you seem to be having a hard time getting answers. What are you asking? What are they telling you?
Well, John, that's so true. I was there for the prayer service for one of these little second graders to lose 27 people, from mostly little girls, from one camp, and 116 in all. It's something that is so painful. I was asking, before this tragedy happened, for the NOAA and the National Weather Service to tell us about the impact of Trump's slash and burn, Elon Musk coming in, eliminating people no matter how good they were, not a matter of efficiency, but wanting to build up a federal body count. I've simply been asking, since this tragedy, this catastrophe, give us the data on what actually happened that night. We know that critical positions were not filled that night. Some question as to whether camps and people in the area, other than one person in Kerr County who apparently was asleep, got the notice in the middle of the night to rescue and prevent this from ever happening. The National Weather Service for 2 months, though its director told me it would be easy to produce the call logs, the chat logs, the radar logs, so we can find out what actually happened that night. They stonewalled me and they failed to produce it. I think there were mistakes, errors, gross negligence at the local level, a failure by the state of Texas, but we need to understand what went wrong at the federal level in order to prevent this from happening again. And of course, this unresponsiveness, this is characteristic of this administration that doesn't believe in transparency, because when you have one-man authoritarian rule, you don't have to have any accountability with a Republican Congress that is so compliant.
Congressman Lloyd Doggett from Texas, we do appreciate your time today.
Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. Please don't forget to subscribe. Please subscribe. We're trying to hit 50K by next month. I haven't been live for the last 3 or 4 days, so I went live on the holiday, but I have an event to go to, so I hope everyone have a great day. Copyright disclaimer, under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is used permitted by a copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Don't forget, focus on healthy, safe relationships. Be around people that's loving, kind, and respectful. Thanks for being here, everyone. Have a great day. Happy holiday. Enjoy your Labor Day. Be safe. Make sure you got somebody that can help you get around if you're going to be taking in substances. Be careful, be safe, and enjoy your holiday. Have a great day. Goodbye.